Welcome to the WCBS studios here in Hudson Square in Lower Manhattan. I'm Rob Hawley, and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome in Lee Child. He is the author of the Jack Reacher series of novels, which has also been turned into a couple of movies starring Tom Cruise. Lee, thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. I've walked past this door many, many times, never been in.
And we're thrilled to have you in. Before diving into Reacher and writing, let's talk a little bit about Thriller Fest. You're the Grand Master at Thriller Fest. So for the uninitiated, what is that?
It means a guy who's still alive after 20 years of doing this, and so they give you an award for that, and it's a real privilege to have it, a real honor. You know, when I started out, I was hoping I would maybe get away with it for 1 or 2 years, and then 3 or 4 years, and here we are at 20 plus years. Feels pretty good.
So what's Thriller Fest? What's there for writers and what's there for fans?
Well, Thriller Fest is run by International Thriller Writers, which is a relatively new organization, and it was founded just with the pure motives of A, celebrating the genre along with our readers, B, looking after the writers working in it, and C, helping new writers get into it. So it's very much craft and trade-based, but also there's a lot for readers. There's a lot of stuff they can find out. They can meet their favorite authors, get books signed and all that kind of stuff, get photographs. And then for the newer writers, they come in and there's always somebody who has been in that same spot before. You know, if you've got a problem, you've got a contract issue, if you don't know what to do with your next book or any of these kind of inside baseball things, there's always somebody to talk to, and it's incredibly helpful.
So for people who may not have either read the books or seen the movies, tell me about Reacher. How do you describe Jack Reacher? Because he is the centerpiece of these books.
Well, you know, once I saw online a description of Reacher, the series, it said, this is a detective series where the detective commits more homicides than he solves. And Reacher's a bit like that. He stands up for justice. He's got a very strong moral code. He's an ex-military cop. He was an MP. Now he's out of the military, and he can't settle down. He just wanders America because he spent his whole life on bases overseas and stuff like that. He's never seen his own country. So he intended to spend a year or two wandering about, looking at things. He's been doing it now for 20 years. And amazingly, sort of once a year, he stumbles into some kind of a problem or trouble where somebody needs help or somebody needs support, and he's willing to give it.
Your 22nd novel, Midnight Line, is due out this fall. Where does this find Reacher?
Well, it finds him, first of all, in Wisconsin, and he walks past a pawn shop, and in the pawn shop he sees a bunch of kind of junk jewelry that has been pawned, but amongst the tray is a class ring from West Point. West Point 2005, and it's tiny. Therefore, this was a woman cadet who graduated after 4 hard years in 2005. Why did she pawn her ring? What would make her do that? So Reacher buys the ring from the store and follows it backward. Where did it come from? Where did it come from then? And he ends up in the wilds of Wyoming and looking for the woman who gave it up. And she's got a pretty tragic story. And so that's really the arc of the book. He's chasing this ring. He's got nothing better to do.
It's fascinating because he finds himself, like you said, in trouble, but it starts with these kind of like innocuous little things. Like in one book, he was on a train and he just liked the name of the town, Mother's Rest.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he is a guy with absolutely nowhere to go and all the time in the world to get there. So he just absolutely loves things like that. He was on the train, he sees the station, Mother's Rest. He's not going there, didn't intend to, but he gets off because what else is he going to do? Yeah. And he stumbles into something in that one that was pretty bad.
So, 22 books. How many more times can this guy dole out justice and cheat death?
Yeah, now, that's a great question because by now the odds are against him. But people love that mythic stature. They love the mythic hero. And, of course, the mythic hero can never die. He'll always win. And that gives me a challenge as a writer because we know kind of that he's going to live through the book because there's got to be another book. And we know kind of that he's going to win because he always does. So how do you get the suspense? And that's my challenge as a writer. But so far it's working okay.
And his strengths are many, some of them quite literal. I think in one book, someone looked at him and saw his physique and said, how many times do you go to the gym? He says, I've never been once in my life. And he's got this kind of Holmesian power of observation and deduction. But where are his blind spots? Where are Reacher's weaknesses?
Well, he's got lots of weaknesses. The thing that I drew on, you're right, he's very smart, he's very deductive, and he's very physically fit and strong. But apart from that, he's completely normal. In fact, a bit of an idiot about a lot of things. Doesn't know how to do laundry, doesn't know how to work a payphone, all kinds of things. And I took that from people we see all around. I mean, suppose you go to the ballpark, you see those players, they're superhuman at playing the game, but the rest of their life, they're as big idiots as the rest of us. And so I think it's pretty plausible that people have these really narrow skill sets and the rest of their life perfectly ordinary.
He's a detective. He really is a detective at heart. But we're moving into an era where computers are much more prevalent. Surveillance is everywhere, but he's kind of very old school. How do you transition a guy like Reacher into the digital age when he doesn't even carry a cell phone around?
He's never owned a cell phone. He's used one once or twice when he's borrowed them, but he doesn't want one. And you're right, he's an analog guy in a digital age. And it's a challenge in a way, but it's actually a bonus because it's kind of too easy. You know, if everybody has a cell phone, everybody has a computer, things are too easy. So usually you find him way out in the wilds where there's no coverage. You know, there's no signal for the phone, there's no computer, so he has to do it the old-fashioned way, which I think people like, to be honest. It's too easy. If you have a problem, you just look it up on your phone and you move on to the next chapter. You know, the book's like 4 pages long in that case.
He travels famously very light. An ATM card, a passport, and a toothbrush, and the clothes on his back. Have you ever tried that?
I absolutely have. I've done that a lot. I've tried a lot of things that are in the Reacher books. Traveling light, I don't own quite as little as he does, but pretty much. You know, like clothes I'm wearing today are all cheap, and I'll throw them away when they're done, and I'll buy new ones. I do that when I'm on tour, especially because then you don't have to carry a big suitcase. And I think it's part of what people love about Reacher. He is literally free of any entanglements or any commitments. He can just walk away and be somewhere the next day. And I used to think that was a guy thing. You know, that was a male fantasy. But actually, over the years, I've learned it's equally a woman's fantasy. They would just love to pick up and be somewhere else tomorrow and leave it all behind. And so everybody can live through Reacher. It's not an easy way to live, actually, just traveling like that. But it can be done. $20 motels, the folding toothbrush, that's all you need.
He's also crisscrossed the country by various means. How many of the places that he's been have you been to, or places that are analogous to them?
Oh, everywhere, yeah. I don't do it specifically for the book. You know, I don't think you should do it that way around. I don't think you should go somewhere with a camera and a notebook. It's all too kind of artificial. But I travel an awful lot, and I've been all over America. And the weirdest, strangest places, met the most fun people, the most odd people, the things you just wouldn't believe. And so I just love to put Reacher in those situations.
At this point, how do you see Reacher? Is he a real person, or is he kind of a mannequin that you pose to serve the story? How do you see him?
I conceive of him as a real person, and the real trick, I think, for a writer writing a long series is to never fall in love with him, not like him too much. Otherwise, he turns out too good, too sugary, too perfect. So my plan is that I should like him a little bit less than you're going to like him, and that keeps him honest, and it keeps him organic, and people respond to that.
You have bounced back and forth between first person and third person writing in your novels. Why? I think you did it in between the first two novels, which kind of threw me when I read them. Why do you do that? Is it something to serve the story? Is it something to just challenge you and keep you interested?
It was partly to serve the story. I love first person. First person is best. That's how we all tell a story. You know, you're going to go home tonight and you're going to say, I did this, I did that. You're not going to say, Hawley did this, Hawley did that, unless you're seriously weird. But so first person is the natural way of doing it. But the problem with first person is you can only know what Reacher knows. You cannot see around the corner. You can't see the bad guys back at the ranch. So for a lot of thriller plots, you need the third person so you can have the alternative point of view. But I really did it at the beginning in the vague hopes that this would be a long-running series. I wanted to stake out some territory. First book was first person in a small town. Second book was third person, and the FBI was there, the White House was there. So I wanted to stake out the sort of left field, right field territory, and then the in-between part would be mine forever. And that worked with the first two books, and I've enjoyed kind of bouncing back and forth, not just first and third person, but big and small. You know, dusty little town in the west of Texas in one book, and then you get all the glitz and glamour of D.C. and L.A. in another book. It gives you tremendous flexibility. I think that's why I'm not bored with the series after 22 books. You know, you could imagine sitting down to write the next one and thinking, oh, here we go again. But I sit down with exactly the same excitement that I did for the first one.
You're from Great Britain. For most of Reacher's life, or in your books, he spends his time in the United States. But you recently sent him back to Great Britain. What was it like writing him in your homeland?
That was a great, fun challenge, really, because as you say, normally what I am is a foreigner writing America like an American. And so to take him back to London, I had to be a native writing London like a foreigner.
So for a lot of people, Tom Cruise has become Jack Reacher. He has starred in 2 movies based on the books. You've actually been in the movies. Did you write yourself in? Did you really want to be in these movies?
I really wanted to be in. I think everybody wants to do their cameo, in their own movie. But I was too cool to ask. I was waiting for them to ask, and they did. They called me, and they had this really complicated idea, this symbolic idea. In the first movie, Reacher is in jail overnight, and he goes to the desk in the morning to pick up his possessions before he is let out. And as you said, he only has really one possession, which is his toothbrush. So the desk sergeant had to give Reacher the toothbrush, and Reacher goes out the door. So they saw tremendous symbolism in this. If I was the desk sergeant handing the toothbrush to Reacher, then on another level, the writer of the book is handing the baton to the actor. And they saw tremendous meaning in that. So I was like, sure, I'll do that. And I did, and it was lovely. And then we did the second one, same kind of thing. Reacher has to get through the airport on a phony ID, and they got me to play the TSA officer. So I'm looking at his phony ID, looking at Cruise's face, looking at the ID, looking at the face, and I say, all right, whatever, enjoy your flight. Again, the approval of the writer for the actor. And I thought it was cool. It was a cute thing to do.
So in a recent novel, you sent Reacher back to your native Great Britain. Until then, he had always just been crisscrossing the United States. What was it like sending Reacher to your homeland?
It was real fun for me because it was an exact reversal of what I normally do. Normally, I'm a foreigner writing America like a native. And for this, I had to do it kind of backwards. I was a native writing London like a foreigner. And it was a question of, okay, so if a guy like Reacher goes to London, what is he going to notice? What is he going to look at and be kind of astonished by? And there's a lot of stuff in Britain because Britain's a weird old country. And in one particular thing that, I've been away for 20 years, and when I go back, it's the same for me. All these strange things are happening. Like you go to the grocery store, and I had Reacher do this. You go to the grocery store, you buy what you want. Then you've got to buy the bag. You buy that little plastic bag to put it in. I could not believe it. Neither could Reacher. He says, what kind of country is this?
So in that case, you had kind of put yourself in Reacher's shoes. So that kind of leads me to this next question. How much of you is in Jack Reacher, and how much of Jack Reacher is in you?
I think we all put a lot of ourselves in the main character because it's partly for the fun of it and partly because what else do we know? So there's a lot of Reacher in me. Generally speaking, men authors make their heroes an inch taller and a lot stronger. Generally speaking, women authors make their heroines have better hair and thinner thighs. It's kind of an idealized version of ourselves. And Reacher shares my birthday, he shares my tastes and my likes and dislikes. So it is a little bit autobiographical. What I sometimes say to people is it's purely autobiographical in terms of his personality, but for the violence, I tone it down for the books so it's plausible.
Lee Child, author of the Jack Reacher series of novels. The 22nd one, Midnight Line, comes out in November. Thank you so much for coming in.
Real pleasure. Good to be with you.